With so many indie games releasing on a weekly basis now, it would be understandable if you allowed many great titles to slip past your radar. But fear not, as today we are discussing 10 lesser known indies that time forgot, but I sure didn't. So whether you're new to the indie gaming scene or have found yourself unsure as to what you should be playing next, I feel confident that at least a few games on this list will be of interest to you. And hopefully you have confidence in the future of independent content like this. Head over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to support indie visibility while gaining Discord access to the greatest indie gaming community, shoutouts at the end of every video we produce, and more. But best of all, you'll be supporting indie visibility. Your new indie gaming community is waiting for you. Alright, let's get into the list, and do note that we have links to our full reviews for every game featured today in the description box below. So if you want to learn more, head on down. First on our list is a disgustingly fun shmup called Gore. In Gore, you'll dodge and weave your way towards a high score, but with a circular light constantly rotating around your ship. If you're able to trap a bullet within that circle and press the appropriate button at the right moment, the bullet will be destroyed and the circle will grow larger. While your main goal, like any other arcade shooter, remains survival, growing the circle to its max size will be paramount to your success. If you're able to do so, you'll not only be able to vaporize bullets, but enemies can also be destroyed in the same way. Mastering this mechanic isn't easy, but feels both fun and satisfying. The gameplay is quick and responsive, and the retro visuals, while a bit on the gross side, are very well done. It wasn't long before I found myself hopelessly addicted to this little indie, trying to survive wave after wave in an attempt to progress forward and earn myself a high score. Power-ups keep the game fresh too, and while they are certainly helpful, Gore is undeniably challenging. It will take some getting used to, and be a bit of an adjustment for fans of the genre, but Gore's addictive gameplay loop, great sound design, and solid graphics make it a shooter that's well worth adding to your indie gaming collection, especially at such a low cost of entry. Next release, I think a big reason why so many of us love indies is because they're willing to take creative risks. Stonefly from Flight School Studio was an example of this, and while it wasn't perfect, there was still a lot to like about this unique indie gaming experience. Stonefly mixes together insects and robots, and puts players in control of Annika. Annika is an inventor who is searching for a lost mech. In order to find this mech, you'll need to pilot various robotic insects which gleefully glide around the world and also have the ability to harvest various materials. There is combat here too, but it's based around stunning enemies and attempting to blow them off of edges as opposed to simply bashing away at them. This gives Stonefly more of a chill vibe while retaining much of what players enjoy about mech games. There are plenty of upgrades for insects. The game's upgrade system does take a bit of time and commitment, but ultimately feels fun and rewarding. Stonefly is a beautiful game too, with a unique visual style of its own. Its visual and audio design remain captivating throughout, immersing players in a world that feels vastly different from others. It is not a game that will leave you feeling stressed either, as it's quite forgiving, and even offers a repairing mechanic to get you back on your feet in no time. Unfortunately, the story isn't always told perfectly, making it one of the weaker aspects of the game. And yeah, being a game with a smaller budget, it's obvious some corners had to be cut here, but even still, Stonefly is very much worth your time, as there just aren't that many games quite like it. Well recommended for those of you seeking something a bit different. Now I'll be honest, I'm not the best at stealth games, but that doesn't mean I don't enjoy playing them from time to time. The Chameleon, in many ways, is the perfect game for someone like me, as its short runtime of 2 to 3 hours felt like just the right amount of gameplay for a more casual fan of the genre. That's not to say it doesn't come with some frustrations, and yet, I was able to forgive most of these, as it was difficult not to fall in love with the Chameleon's fascinating 70s throwback setting and 32-bit visuals. This is a game that wastes no time tossing you into the action, opting to teach players through a series of notes and audio logs scattered across the world. What is obvious, however, is that you are trapped in a facility and need to avoid guards and try to escape. The game gets its name from you having the ability to take on different forms and gain additional superpowers. These powers will not only help you bypass enemies, but can help in solving various environmental puzzles. The catch is, using these superpowers drains your health, so there's a bit of a risk-reward element to using them. The Chameleon certainly takes some getting used to, as mastering its one-kill punch will be essential to your success. You'll die plenty of times throughout gameplay, but once you master the mechanics of this interesting little indie, I think you'll find a compelling stealth action experience that also gives off great retro vibes. The Chameleon, like most games, isn't perfect, but it's a whole lot of fun and won't take up much of your time. Plus, it's cheap, so not much of a financial risk either. We don't often see indie developers attempt 3D action hack-and-slash titles similar to Devil May Cry, so whenever it ends up happening, I'm instantly interested. That said, it would be understandable to be skeptical of such games, as these titles are often highlighted by flashy cutting-edge graphics and cutscenes, something that indie creators aren't always capable of pulling off successfully on a shoestring budget. In the case of Ultra Age, it showcases that yes, there are struggles to be had in creating these styles of games without the backing of a AAA publisher, but it can in fact be done, albeit with some sacrifices. Ultra Age is comfort food in a lot of ways, a turn-your-brain-off style action game that is easy to grasp and fun to play. If you go into the game with an understanding that the story isn't going to be very well told, or acted for that matter, you'll find yourself having a pretty good time. Ultra Age is a fairly linear game that offers very light exploration, but mostly focuses on its combat. In that department, the game delivers with a fantastically engaging combat engine that allows for players to swap between a variety of weapons. Stringing together combos is a blast, and weapon switching becomes even more important when you realize certain enemies are more susceptible to damage from specific weaponry. Add in a grappling hook that can be mixed into your combos and you've got yourself a hell of a fun romp. While simple, the combat does continue to evolve as you add more abilities and upgrades. This means that enemy encounters never get all that tiring. Overall, this is a fun experience so long as you're in it for the action as opposed to the story. Yes, it had its shortcomings, and I don't think it reviewed particularly well, except I gave it a pretty good review, but Ultra Age, in my humble opinion, is well worth your time regardless for the action alone. Maybe you've been looking for a new point-and-click adventure game to add to your collection. Well then, you might want to get your paws on Inspector Waffles. This charming murder mystery came to mind after having recently reviewed Locomotive, another game with a similar theme within the same genre. As someone who loves this style of gameplay, murder mysteries, and cats, Inspector Waffles feels like it was made for me. The simple visuals are charming, backed by gameplay that is mostly what you would expect. Point and click about the screen, find clues and objects, and solve puzzles. There's your usual inventory system as well, which of course will have you combining items together. While there's nothing inherently original about the gameplay of Inspector Waffles, its charming writing and characters remain endearing throughout. And let's be honest, that's at least half of the reason we play point-and-click adventure games in the first place. Inspector Waffles does still come with many of the frustrations these games are known for, but if you have an understanding of what you're signing up for, I think you'll find an enjoyable indie release that's worth the price of admission. It's not the hardest game I've played, nor the longest, but it's a case worth solving regardless. Have you ever been guilted into saying yes to something you really didn't want to? Yeah, me too, which is why I loved Say No more. It's a game that's all about telling people no, and it feels endlessly satisfying to do so. Describing Say No more to someone is difficult, but here at I Dream of Indie Games, we've always referred to it as an on-rails knower. In this title, you are hired on as an intern at a company that refuses to say no to anything. In fact, saying the word no is strictly forbidden and will send anyone that you say it to into an absolute frenzy. So naturally, you need to shout no to everyone in sight. Things start out simple enough, with a softer tone to your no's, but eventually you can work your way up to unleashing super devastating no's that will blast people into oblivion. You'll be surprised at just how effective a simple two-letter word can be in the world of Say No more. If you enjoy your games quirky and offbeat, then you'll find plenty to like here. The simplistic gameplay is easy enough for anyone to enjoy, the retro visuals bring the world to life, and the sound design is great. It's another short experience with no real challenge to it, but you'll probably feel pretty good by the time the credits roll. The game has a good message too, worth playing for that reason alone. Sometimes all you need out of a game is a nice simple experience. No endless tutorials, no hours of dialogue, just pure basic gameplay. This is one of the reasons I love Retro Highway, a throwback arcade racer that plays things safe. Retro Highway focuses on challenges as opposed to races and features 6 different worlds. Your goal is to avoid other vehicles and obstacles en route to collecting coins, which will boost your stats. The basic leveling system is more fun than you would expect, as is unlocking new bikes, all of which have a unique feel of their own. Challenges are varied too, and don't all need to be completed in order to unlock new worlds, which takes away some of the frustrations. Sure, some of the challenges do get a little repetitive, but with the game being so accessible, it's not something where you have to do everything in one sitting either. Retro Highway is a great little racer at a low cost, and is available on mobile too if you want to have it in your pocket. Don't judge a book by its cover, and grab this one if you love arcade racing as much as I do. The YouTube algorithm works in mysterious ways, trust me, and somehow, someway, Real Boxing 2 on the Nintendo Switch, as of this moment, remains our most viewed review of all time. That's not a knock against the game, it's on this list for a reason, but I think it's also fair to say that this isn't a game anyone was probably guessing to go viral in a video format. Regardless, Real Boxing 2 is a surprisingly fun boxing title from Cubic Games. I'm a big boxing fan and have always enjoyed games such as Punch-Out!, Evander Holyfield's Real Deal Boxing, and even the George Foreman game nobody seems to remember. And Fight Night was fun too, with a greater sense of realism, which is closer to what Real Boxing 2 attempts in a way, albeit on a smaller budget and scale. Real Boxing 2 on the Switch shakes some, not all of its mobile trappings, and is a reasonably fun boxing experience that you can take on the go. Using the sticks to toss punches, the gameplay is pretty simple at first, but eventually introduces more advanced techniques. Players can create their own character and put them through the ranks. The career mode is fairly entertaining, and a local 2-player option can also be fun in short bursts. The focus is definitely on that career mode, however, which is fairly robust in its offerings. There is a massive map full of fights to take part in, with tons of unlockables. Unfortunately, there are some confusing currencies. I'm not sure why they didn't simplify things for the Switch version, but all told, this is a pretty solid boxing game that I had plenty of fun punching my way through. The visuals are also shockingly good for a Switch game. If you're looking for some budget boxing, you could definitely do worse than Real Boxing 2. Explore a mining colony and take down alien nasties in B.I.O.T.A, an all but forgotten indie game that is quite entertaining. Like any game on this list, B.I.O.T.A is not perfect, but it nails the basics with fun gameplay, a solid story, and great visual presentation. The game features a good variety of weapons and characters as you blast your way through a varied map, exploring interesting areas. There's a lot of nods here to the classics, especially the game that so clearly inspired it, the original Metroid. The game offers 3 different ways to play, whether you want to take on time trials, tackle an arcade mode, or most likely, go for the story mode. While the story mode is the star of the show, it's always nice to have different options available. The platforming and shooting are all sound, weapons are a literal blast to use, and with multiple endings there are reasons to revisit. I also enjoyed vehicle segments, such as being able to control an underwater submarine. This adds a bit of variety to the familiar Metroidvania gameplay loop. And of course, in this style of game, a decent map is going to be everything, and thankfully B.I.O.T.A gets this aspect of the gameplay right too. Not only is the map fun to explore, it's easy enough to understand and navigate. Overall, if you need another Metroidvania in your library that puts its own unique spin on things, certainly give B.I.O.T.A a look. Alright, this release is definitely for a niche audience, and is pricier than the others, but I wanted to include it because honestly, it's just kind of fun and over the top. Also, this was my favorite review maybe ever on the channel by Silent Signs, so be sure to check that out down below. At any rate, 7 Pirates H is a pervy RPG that is so completely zany that you can't help but chuckle at it all. Truth be it told, there is a fun game here underneath the curvaceous exterior. You won't find a leveling system like this in many other RPGs, that's for sure. Take control of a boisterous young lady who wants to become the world's greatest pirate. Joined by her boy monster, you'll search every crack and crevice, literally, for treasure. The turn-based combat seems relatively tame at first, until it reveals its perverted hand, or hands. Hey now, make sure you keep both hands on the controller while you're playing, alright? The twist on things would be the booby training, which has you training characters' breasts. Now you talk about getting a titty twister. There's a lot more to get into here, which I'm confident YouTube doesn't want me to, but here's the main takeaway. 7 Pirates H is either the cringiest game you'll ever play, or a competent RPG that you'll have a blast going through. Which side of that you fall on, well, you probably knew the moment I started talking about it. Hope you had fun with this list, Indie Warriors, and keep it locked to I Dream of Indie Games for even more great coverage of everything indie all the way up to AA niche. Voice to the voiceless, and I'll see you on the channel.